Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Second Skin, which is episode 5 of season 3 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek as requested by my viewers. This episode was requested by John K. So, Second Skin is the episode that begins with Kira getting a strange call where a Bajoran official claims she was at a military prisoner camp during the occupation, but Kira has no memory of it. She does some investigating and contacts a few people, and they all indicate that she was indeed being held at that prison for at least a week. So, she decides to go to Bajor to investigate further. However, on her way there, she's abducted. She wakes up in a house in Cardassia and finds that her appearance has been changed, so she appears as a Cardassian. A man named Intek, who works for the Obsidian Order, informs her that her real name is Eliana Gamor, and she was a Cardassian Obsidian Order agent who posed as a Bajoran and had her memories changed so that she thought that she was that Bajoran. In this case, a Bajoran terrorist, Kira Nerys, who died in the prisoner camp 8 years ago, and since then she assumed her identity. However, Kira doesn't buy this for an instant. Back on Deep Space Nine, Sisko and Odo launch an investigation to find out what happened to Major Kira, and they eventually get help from Garak, who informs them that she is being held on Cardassia, so they launch a rescue mission on the Defiant. Meanwhile, Kira continues to be hounded by Intek, who dogs her for information she refuses to give. The man claiming to be her father, a high-ranking legate named Tekeni Gamor, who is convinced that she is his daughter, becomes very worried for her as it becomes apparent that Intek is willing to do whatever it takes to get that information out of her, so he fears for her safety. Eventually, Legate Gamor reveals he is a member of the Cardassian Dissident movement and is going to use his contacts in the underground to move his daughter to safety. And that's when Kira puts everything together and realizes that Intek must have suspected that Gamor was involved with the underground but couldn't prove it, so used Major Kira to flush him out. As since he knew Kira wasn't really his daughter, he knew that she would never regain her memories and wouldn't cooperate, and that would lead Legate Gamor to be forced to reveal himself in order to protect her. And she turns out to be correct as Intek shows up and kills Gamor's underground contact and threatens to take them all. However, Sisko, Odo, and Garak manage to show up just in time, and they rescue Kira and Legate Gamor and take them back to Deep Space Nine, but not before Garak kills Intek. Once back on Deep Space Nine, Kira expresses her admiration for Legate Gamor and considers him an honorable man, and has a parting piece of fatherly advice. He tells her never to trust Garak. So, this episode takes place in what I personally think of as the renaissance of Deep Space Nine. That is, its third season, which in my opinion is the first really great season of Deep Space Nine, as I found the first two to be average at best. That being said, this isn't one of my favorite episodes of the third season, and for a third season episode, it was kind of average, but even this episode had a very noticeable increase in quality as compared to the two previous seasons. This episode was a pretty solid espionage or political intrigue episode, one that deals quite well with fleshing out Major Kira's character as we follow the emotional journey she goes through as she is forced to consider the possibility that she may in fact be who she thinks she could possibly be, a Cardassian, a member of her worst enemy. And that emotional journey played out pretty well. However, while watching this episode, I found myself wondering whether or not it would have been better had they actually revealed that Kira was really a Cardassian all along. At the end of the episode, Bashir does in fact confirm she is and has always been a Bajoran, but I wonder how much better it could have been had this not happened. Apparently, the original plan was to leave it ambiguous as to whether or not she was a Bajoran or Cardassian, and Bashir was going to be unable to confirm it either way. However, I'm not entirely certain it would have been better had they done it that way, as it might have been a bit wishy-washy to reveal in their third season that our token Bajoran character is in fact a Cardassian sleeper agent. It would have completely changed the dynamic on the show. However, that may not necessarily be a good thing. It kind of would have been like the Simpsons episode where they revealed Principal Skinner was never really Seymour Skinner, and that his real name was Armin Tasmarian, and he stole the real Seymour Skinner's identity many years ago. This episode of The Simpsons was universally panned as a horrible decision. The showrunners themselves refer to it as a very controversial episode, and many reviewers refer to it as the moment that The Simpsons jumped the shark. However, the episode itself even makes fun of it at the end of the episode, where the judge decrees that no one will ever speak of this ever again, and as far as anyone is concerned, he is Seymour Skinner. So it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek episode anyway, and it's just an episodic comedy. However, it does seem rather similar to if they revealed that Kira was never really Kira in the first place. So on second thought, maybe it was a very good thing that they didn't make that change permanent. But then, on the other hand, it does come off as kind of a cop-out to reveal in the same episode that she is in fact just the Bajoran, it kind of makes what we thought of in this episode as just a gimmick without any lasting effects. However, it seems to be, kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. In the grand scheme of things, this episode doesn't really have any lasting effects on the show overall, other than the fact that Leggett Gilmore makes one more appearance in the 5th season episode, Ties of Blood and Water. In fact, the original story idea was to do this with Chief O'Brien and have him learn that he was a Cardassian agent since Star Trek 3. However, they couldn't explain away how he managed to have a human child with Keiko, so the focus was then switched to Kira. And personally, I think this was a very wise move, as I think it makes much more sense with Kira, although the show seems obsessed with putting O'Brien through hell with episodes like Tribunal, Whispers, The Armageddon Game, and Hard Time. So it is much more interesting for the show to break with this and do this with Kira. And very ironically, O'Brien doesn't even appear in this episode. Plus, I thought it just worked really well with Kira as it played off her prejudice against the Cardassians and the experience she had with them as essentially being monsters, and to find she is suddenly one of them is set up a nice dynamic indeed. However, I did question why they made this story about Kira learning to sympathize with Cardassians when this was already accomplished far better in the episode Duet, which I personally consider the best Star Trek episode ever. Therefore, when comparing this episode to it, I feel it pales in comparison. And even in particular with Kira learning to understand and overcome her bias against Cardassians, I thought it was done way better in Duet. And this aspect of the episode felt like a pale rehash that was repetitive and entirely unnecessary. However, I personally think that the best part of this episode by far is Garak. Although Garak is just a supporting character in this episode, he had a lot of amazing moments and great quotes, such as when Sisko blackmailed him into joining them on their mission by threatening to kick him off the station. Garak told Sisko that this was extortion, and I love Sisko's response, and he was just like, yes it is. And I love that. Of course, that's an awesome Sisko moment. The follow-up was an awesome Garak moment where he tells Sisko that he will go on the mission with them, but he will not help them. And if things go south, their lives are in danger. They're completely on their own. And Sisko's response was golden, where he said, "Mr. Garak, I believe this is the first completely honest thing you have ever said to me." And Garak's great response, "How perceptive of you, Commander." It's such an awesome scene. As was the great scene where a Cardassian ship is about to board at Defiant, and Garak scares the commander off by ordering him away. And after this very aggressive display where Garak just so happens to cite a valid Central Command code that scares the Cardassians off, his only response is, "Well, it's just something I overheard while hemming someone's trousers." Such an awesome Garak moment. Also, when Garak showed up with Sisko and Odo to rescue Kira, and when he sees Kira as a Cardassian, he says, "Major, I don't think I've ever seen you looking so ravishing." Awesome, great Garak quote. And after he kills Intek in self-defense, he very calmly says, "What a pity, I rather liked him." And Odo gives him this look like, "What the fuck, dude?" Again, amazing Garak moments. That combined with the warning Gamora gave Kira about Garak really played up the fact that this was one shady fellow. And I loved that, as we were getting a bit too used to him being an ally, and it was so great to get reminders that this is not a nice guy, nor is he a hero. Although I don't think this was really followed up again until the 6th season episode In the Pale Moon Light, which was the next episode to feature a lot of great Garak and Sisko interactions. But of course, a more recent example closer to the release of this episode was Improbable Cause and The Die Is Cast, where we also get a lot of great Garak moments. But that two-parter ends with Garak saving Odo and showing his friendship, so not the best example of him being ruthless like he was in the Pale Moon Light. So this was a nice setup for that. But it seems obvious when they had Gamora give Kira that warning. They didn't have any specific thing in mind. They just wanted to build up how ominous Garak was, and I think they did a great job doing it. So my rating for Second Skin out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. I want to give this episode a 7, but I think all the great Garak moments elevate it to an 8. But although this wasn't the best example of Kira learning to befriend a Cardassian and look at them differently, it was still a nice character study showing how Kira would deal with the possibility that she may be her own worst enemy, which was a nice dynamic. Plus, there was a lot of great political intrigue, making it quite a suspenseful episode as well. So that's it for my review of Second Skin. If there's an episode from any of the 5 Star Trek series you'd like me to review, just leave your request in the comment below, but please only one episode request per person. And be sure to check out my channel for many more Star Trek videos, as well as many more videos on shows like Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.